Building blocks for the year. I'm Lindsay Stevenson. I work in the Shawnee Mission School District. I live in Edwardsville, Kansas, and I am also an educational consultant. My master's is in special education. I'm a former deaf educator. I then worked with at the high school level with reading and ELA for 11 years, and I'm going on 5 years as an instructional coach. I'm currently also the digital learning coach for all secondary schools in Shawnee Mission. I'm a presenter for Flipped Learning Network, a Google certified trainer, a parent, a wife, and an animal lover. So I've included some pictures of my furry and feathered friends. Our goals for today are to connect that brain research to how we plan for block scheduling and then use our brain blocks to build out our block day. So our brains cycle down every 15 to 20 minutes, and that is going to be a shorter range of time the younger we are, but all of us, regardless of age, have cycles of our brain, and it has to cycle down to process information. So these are also called brain breaks. However, at the secondary level, where I primarily focus my PD, is something I call processing breaks. So we don't have to get up and do the hokey pokey or do something completely unrelated to get that break. We can have processing breaks, processing the information that is content related, so we don't have to go off content. So the reason we need to process is because it's going to reset our amygdala, freshen our neurotransmitters, and it creates more brain activity so that we can continue to learn rather than shut down. So our mental brain breaks are going to happen 5 to 8 times in a block day, approximately every 10 to 15 minutes. And our mental breaks are going to look a lot like turn and share, retell something, summarize, compare and contrast, explain this in 5 words, provide an example, or check with a partner. So we can still do this through discussion in chat rooms digitally. We can do this where maybe you set up documents for small groups of students and they all are on a shared document. YoTeach does a nice job of offering places for back channel. You could just have a spreadsheet and have one column be the first partner's name and the second column the second partner's name. And then in the boxes outside to the right of that, that's where they have their conversation, and there's one spreadsheet for the whole class. So then we have these physical process breaks, which look super different, obviously, right now during COVID. Processing breaks that were physical should happen about 3 times in a block day, approximately every 20 minutes. These physical breaks, when it's not COVID, is like 4 corners. Walk around, choose a partner from across the room. Make standing groups of 3. Do a gallery walk. Now, gallery walk is still doable if you're in-person learning. So for a hybrid situation, the gallery walk would work. Put post-its of understanding in different places of the room. So you might have like a sign that says, I'm getting it, I'm not getting it, I'm almost there. And then they have to go to these different locations to put, and as long as you release them to walk to those locations in different small groups, that should be fine. So some of those you could make work in hybrid. Now, when we're remote, basically what we need to do is tell kids to stand up. Like, stand up while you solve this problem. Stand up while we have this conversation. Like, you're going to do a round robin conversation, and you want everyone standing for that. But we need to encourage our students in a remote situation to stand up. I mean, here you could do some basic stretches and things too. So physical processing breaks are best connected to content when it's not COVID times. But when it's COVID times, the best we're going to do right now is just get them with their butts out of their seats. So the brain cycles last about 12 to 20 minutes of active processing. Again, the younger they are, the shorter that active processing time is. Process breaks that should last 5 to 10 minutes. So you want them to stand up for 5 or 10 minutes. You want them to be talking or processing or working through something for 5 to 10 minutes before returning to having that intake of information. You want to revisit that information 24 or 48 hours after you've instructed it. You want them to review it and reapply it. So that's called retrieval process. The harder it is for them to retrieve, the longer it will stay in their memory. So Have them try and retrieve things without a lot of help, without a lot of notes, without a lot of prompting. And some teachers I know just say, get out a blank piece of paper, write down everything you remember learning yesterday. Now, switch pieces of paper with people 3 times and see if they can add more to your plate. So our working memory is very temporary. It's a very small capacity. It manipulates that information on the intake, but it does require attention and effort. And unfortunately, stress greatly impacts our working memory. So a lot of this research has been done with students in low SES and poverty. So now, if we think about it, every student has that amount of stress with COVID. I don't think there's any family or student right now that's just not having some level of stress due to our current situations. So we need to keep in mind that those processing breaks are even more important because it will help our working memory to retain information. So working memory is like listening to letters that are recited out of order, unscrambling those letters to figure out the word, and doing it in a short time frame. If you Google working memory activities, you'll find a bunch of little activities you could do. These would be great openers to do when you're starting remotely, to really you can build better working memory. You can train the working memory. So by doing these activities, that will help the working memory. So there's 3 things we have to consider when we're doing our lessons. No matter what variation, how we're teaching, this doesn't really change. We need sensory input. The thalamus, optical lobe, and temporal. We need images, if we can move and touch things. We need sensory input. We need to hear things. Emotional input, the amygdala. We need to emotionally connect our kids to what it is we're trying to teach them. If they don't care, they don't learn. Memory, hippocampus. So the memory, again, is really training their memory, giving them ways to help remember it, helping them with retrieval processing. So we activate the prior knowledge and connection. We add that student movement and regular intervals to help keep their attention. We connect students socially and emotionally. And then we have this frequent retrieval and low-risk practice with information allows our student stronger pathways of long-term memory. So when I say low-risk practice, that means we don't grade those formative checks. Those are formative checks that just help them retrieve information. We don't add the extra stress of a grade attached to it because that in turn will actually have a negative effect on them being able to retrieve. So stress is created with a lack of control. Most of us don't have control. Our students don't have control of what's happening day to day right now. So stress in the brain, we need to be very, very acutely aware that stress is going to impact their motivation. It's going to affect their memory. It's going to impair their self-control, and it's going to slow down their processing. So all of those brain breaks, all those processing breaks are really, really important to be consistent with because the brain stress is working against us with their learning this year. One thing we can do as teachers, there is something we have control of, and if we can get them to release dopamine, we will counteract some of that stress hormone. So providing them as much formative feedback, again, formative ungraded feedback that help them learn it better before the final grade. The more feedback they get, the more dopamine is released. Create that anticipation and curiosity. Do those anticipation guides. Do little tiny, essential questions or things that help prompt them into discovery. Have them problem solve. Give them a checklist for the week to help them monitor their progress through the week. Do goal setting every Monday and reflection on those goals every Friday. Plan and have agendas available for them. Provide some creative tasks for them to activate that creativity and create things and products. And then use movement and laughter. Put things in that are funny that will make them laugh, because when we laugh, we release dopamine, which counteracts the stress hormones, which in turn helps our learning ability and our memory. So our planning for block. Research indicates that student engagement declines as students progress from upper elementary to middle school and reaching the lowest levels in high school. Some studies even show 40 to 60% of youth are disengaged by the time they reach high school. So this is not a surprise to most of us. So when we do engagement, we want to think of engagement in 3 different blocks: cognitive engagement, physical engagement, social engagement. So our cognitive engagement is the quick writes, highlighting and annotating, interacting with text, drawing pictures, drawing some type of sketch notes because they're drawing. So regular notes don't count, but drawing, sketching does. Reordering information that they are provided with. If they are being compliant and taking notes while you talk, that is not thinking, that is compliance. Anything that mentally has them doing something, manipulating information that's going in their head, is considered cognitive. Physical, in this case, there's chairs, standing, stretches, stand up, pair up, walk 5, and group up. Like we've kind of talked about how COVID kind of nails like my physical engagement strategies, and it's really hard to do in physical engagement that is content related when we have to stay 6 feet apart. I will say there's some good things you can do if you can get outside. If they can maintain 6 feet apart, do some like circle up, have them move around like that, like walking 6 feet apart on the track while having a conversation about the content or information, giving them some prompts. Those things would work well if you're in hybrid. Social, a pair share, a back channel, breakout rooms, shared document, or organizer. All of those things, sharing those documents is going to be huge for social engagement in a remote setting. Whenever they're social, they're generally cognitive too because it's content related. So using technology with purpose as well will help aid all of those things. So most of the time we've got that compliance, that consumption, videos, reading, notes, and slides. That's going to happen remotely. That's our compliant piece. But if kids are creating, we're going to release dopamine because they're being creative. They're creating podcasts, infographics, presentations, videos, and websites, right? Collaborating, if they're collaborating with shared slides, group writes, and back channel, they're socializing, so we have that social engagement. And curating is kind of a curiosity thing, quite honestly. It's like gathering as much information, going on those scavenger hunts for information. All of that will help brain activity as well. So we have those 2 types of learning. We have synchronous learning. It's in real time, it's discussions, community building, mini lessons through virtual learning. We have asynchronous learning, which is self-paced, it's personal. Video, mini lessons, projects, reflection, and discussions could be done in a back channel as well. Most of remote learning is going to be asynchronous. You're going to have them do a lot of stuff when they're not logged on to a meeting with you. So really think carefully about what that synchronous time looks like for you. What do you want that synchronous time to be like? So here are our building blocks: pre-test and front load, community builder or check-in, a mini lesson, application and practice, formative assessment, and student reflection. So our first one is pre-test. Always pre-test them and let them see the results so they recognize there are things they don't know and there are things that you have to teach them. Especially at secondary level, they forget that they need us for teachers, right? They think they know it all. We need to show them they don't know it all and we have something to offer to help them learn. Quick writes are good here. Reading an article, song, lyrics, poem, a close read. View images and then write or think about conclusions of those images, kind of rhetorical thinking of images here. Do a working memory activity, a problem-solving activity, or graphic organizers to front load. Then we do that community builder check-in. So it's cooperative learning. Have them create memes and shared slides. They can do this stuff with vocabulary, comprehension. It could just be a check-in with memes, a meme from how they feel that week. And then have them comment on each other's contributions. So have them comment in the presenter comments that are underneath each slide. That's where they can comment. Do just a fast Google form to check on their well-being. So have 3 or 4 emojis and have them pick the emoji that best indicates how they're feeling. A quick pair share or a small group discussion and questions. Then you have the mini lesson objective and norm. So if you normally teach for 30 minutes straight, you're going to have 2 or 3 mini lessons worth of videos. Or you're just going to break down what you're doing into 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, and give them those processing breaks in between. So what will kids do when they watch or listen to videos of direct instruction? These videos, if they're online, they should be modeling the skill. And then no more than 2 mini lessons per block period. Individual work time, application, and practice. So that's where they're working on their own. They really don't need to be logged onto a computer if they're working by themselves on assignments you've provided. Using that like online time and remote learning for cooperative group work, doing labs during that application process, writing workshops, Genius Hour, project-based learning, lit circles, or research groups. Our formative assessment, I provided a lot of tools here, but anything you do to just gather what information that you need to move on and make your next move as a teacher. Like what basic skills did they need to learn, and what is it you need to know for the next day's planning. Finally, end every block with some type of student reflection. Ask them which standards they were addressing in the assignment, how they can show their growth. What strategies did they use on these assignments? Have them actually define what they know, what they need to know better, and how they're going to figure it out. Quick writes are easy, low planning there. Set goals for next steps or illustrate how they felt while they were learning the lesson. So you have your building blocks, you have your process breaks, and you have your movement breaks. And these can overlap. These don't all have to be separate. So long as we just don't have the intake of information, that passive reception happening for more than 10 to 15 minutes at a time, we can have the community builder be a cooperative activity, and that is also a process break. We can have the application be working or discussing something, and that's processing. So these ideas can overlap with our basic instruction. So here's a sample ELA lesson that I would do for a block. And then I've got my symbols for my process breaks. And this would all be based on the objective or direct skill of main idea and supporting details. And then I ended with questions, and if you have those questions, please email teachwithstevenson@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to help you throughout your school year. Have a great year and stay healthy and safe.